Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mark Bell's Power Project Podcast. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Piedmontese Beef. Nsima, you work with a lot of clients. Definitely some have different goals. Some have they want to gain strength. Some want to lean down. But can you tell me why, for most people, getting more protein in is important?
So, I mean, something that not only do people struggle with, I struggle with a lot is getting really hungry during a diet. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest thing. It's like people are dieting and they're like, I want to eat more. I need more food. But, you know, one of the reasons why protein is so important, and Mark talks about this all the time with his protein leveraging diet, is that when you have more protein, it's satiating. You feel full. You don't feel like eating a crazy amount of food. And the great thing about Piedmontese is that not only does it have a lot of protein per every single serving of meat, but it has minimal amounts of fat that if you're dieting, you can kind of go to town on Piedmontese and you're not getting in that many calories of fat. It's great. It's perfect for if you're cutting. And if you're bulking, well, you can just have more meat. It's pretty amazing. You guys got to check it out.
Yeah, you guys got to get satiated today by eating a higher quality cut of beef. And the best way, in our opinion, to do that is by heading over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. All right, gentlemen. So it looks like things are locking down again.
Oh, my God.
Wait, everywhere? Because I know in Sac we're in purple, but is this everywhere?
I mean, that's everywhere for me. Like, I don't really know what's going on outside of Sac right now, but for us, it's such a bummer because, I think, I don't know if I mentioned this on air, like I was planning on going to our son's next doctor's appointment, which is scheduled for later today. When we scheduled it, they're like, oh, we've opened back up. We're good to go. Like, you know, your husband can come in and, you know, I can listen to his heartbeat for the first time and all that good stuff. Since then, they kind of tightened things up, so I won't be able to go again. But yeah, it's obviously for us the biggest bummer, and for people listening is like gyms, you know, tighten things up or even shutting down completely. What do you know what it's like in Sacramento and Nsima?
Well, yeah, in Sac right now, gyms are closed. Certain places downtown are closed. I know that places that are choosing not to close just aren't like, I mean, my jiu-jitsu school just chose not to close this time. And a lot of other jiu-jitsu schools are the same way. So, yeah, I feel like businesses are just, they hear it, but some just are like, nah, we're not going to do that again.
Yeah, I like that. I think that more people should do that.
Yeah, for reals. So I guess with some of that in mind, I'm sure people this time around, you know, they kind of, I don't want to say learn their lesson, but they kind of got the shock of like, oh crap, this one thing that I counted on is no longer there. So let me get some home equipment and stuff. So hopefully this time around, they're a little bit more prepared, you know? So it's like, you know, some people who maybe went into quarantine and came out a little bit less betterist than they were on the way in, maybe they can maintain this time around. And one of the things that I had questions for you guys, you know, I don't know, I'm still pretty slender, you know, but my legs aren't terrible, but I definitely would like to have some Nsima quads. So I wanted to focus on how can me and other people develop a little bit better looking legs.
I think maybe let's first off kind of talk about stuff that builds your legs that is outside the gym, you know, because you got to keep in mind with Nsima, you know, he played a sport where they literally, you can't use your hands, you know, you can only kind of use your legs to get around and your feet. And not everyone that plays soccer necessarily is going to have big legs because different people respond. Yeah, right. Different people respond differently, but most soccer players at least have good legs. They might not have like real muscular or big legs, but I would probably say that it probably depend on your position and your role on the team and stuff like that too. And obviously genetics play into it. But I think a lot of times when somebody sees somebody with like big calves or big legs, I think they just think about what the person does now, and they think, oh, okay, the guy said he does leg press and these different things. But I think it would be a good idea to at least have some understanding of the person's background. That doesn't mean that you have to go and take up soccer necessarily, but is there something that you could do that could mimic some of that? Could you drag a sled, and when you drag the sled, it represents 2 minutes of straight work or something like that? Are there things that you could implement into your own training? We see this with like collegiate style wrestlers and stuff. They have huge necks and traps, and then people are like, how'd you build up your neck and your traps? And it's like, well, I wrestled for 10 years, and so sometimes it's a little sometimes it's hard just to know or say kind of where somebody kind of ended up with their original groundwork.
Well, Mark, I mean, your legs are pretty freaking massive, like, and you did all of it through lifting. Like, yeah, you did wrestling too and stuff, but I mean, your legs grew, like they're huge. So I guess if we're going to start this off, since everybody's at home, because I think, we'll do home stuff and then the gym stuff. How should individuals tackle their legs right now if they're still really trying to build them? And I even wonder, like, is this the time to focus on trying to build a lot of muscle on your legs? Or, I mean, is this the time just to keep working on them?
I think, one thing that comes to mind is a hill. If you have a hill, walking a hill, I think, can build your calves and your hamstrings tremendously. Obviously, sprinting a hill, but keep in mind, if you haven't run in a long time, you got to be really, really cautious. I know, like, people like Ben Pekulski, he obviously built up his legs through just torturing himself with weights, but he also was a big fan of like riding a bike, just a regular stationary bike in the gym, and building up a lot of just getting just a crazy burn in his legs. So for outside stuff, I would say, I mean, you have options with like lunges. If you have a weighted vest or a dumbbell or a kettlebell, you can hold that and you can do like lunges. You can do like goblet squats and things of that nature. And then you also have things like just running uphill. And again, a sled, get yourself a sled. I think that most of the companies are kind of back to normal in terms of them being able to provide equipment for you. So walking forwards and backwards with a sled it's freaking amazing. And if you can't get a sled or can't afford one or whatever, maybe you can push something up and down the street.
That one sled that you guys got in the gym, and I think, Andrew, you must have used it too at this point, but it's the one with the three, it's like one head, and then you can push with the two. It's a, like, electronic.
The tank?
The tank,
yeah.
But the new tank.
Right.
The new tank. I think online, that's like maybe, okay, I know like not everybody has $700 or $800 to spend, but if you think about like what you get, the compact type of sled you get and the ability that you have with that sled, if you guys do get a sled and you have some money, Christmas is coming around, maybe you can ask your baby mama or your sugar mama for $700. You should get that, because that is one hell of a machine. It torched me.
Great point. You can push it, you can pull it. It has attachments to where you can bench press it basically, or pull it, or you can set up like a rope on there. You can pull it into you and all kinds of different stuff. So that's a great option.
Yeah, it's super compact too. I know they were obviously going for that with the design and the marketing behind it. But man, when I saw that, I'm like, oh my goodness! Like, I had a feeling we would get one inside the gym, but I'm like, even with that, like, yeah, it would be so cool to have here to just like push that thing around the block or something, because there's no hills where I'm currently at. Obviously I can probably go find some, but for me, like, that's actually what I recommended my nephew. He just kind of started like, hey, like, the question mark, like, so I'm, kind of getting interested in some lifting and stuff. And, he did exactly what I did at the very start. It's like, well, running sucks, so I think I'm supposed to do that. And he has access to kind of like an overpass, we'll call it. And I'm like, hey, instead of like running your face off till it sucks, let me just go up and down that hill. You can walk it. You can try to jog it if you want. Like, just be careful. I'm like, but when you're on that incline, not only is it going to help build your legs, but you're actually going to burn way more calories than if you were to just like run for a long time. Like if you were to match the distance, I mean, but it's so powerful to do that.
The website is torquefitness.com, not twerk. Torque Fitness. Yeah.
Although there should be a Torque Fitness. There definitely is, right? There has to be.
And it's called the M1 sled or something, right?
I believe so. Yeah, people will see it right on the site.
Yeah, Tank one.
And there's a bunch of different resistance on there. There's like one resistance variable is you could put some weight on there. Another resistance variable is you could have it set to the point where when you go to push into it, it gives back whatever you push into it. And then there's another resistance variable, which is just straight resistance. And there's like 3 different degrees of that. So it's a real beast of a piece of equipment. But I think whenever we're talking about, trying to like build anything, trying to get anything bigger, one of the first places we have to start, and we had Mike Israetel on yesterday or a couple days ago, and he was absolutely fantastic in pointing out that, the form, the technique, the full range of motion, these are critical things. So I think the first thing that you want to look into is, how can I not necessarily lift more weight, but how can I get better at these exercises? Because if you could only squat down, looking at Ben Pekulski again, I mean, his legs were massive. He's got legendary legs in the bodybuilding community. Tom Platz is another person that had just crazy, crazy quads. And if you look at the way that these guys could squat, they could have their feet inside their shoulder width, have their feet pointed completely straight forward, and they can drop their butt right on the ground with picture perfect form and technique. And so if you can't do that, it doesn't mean that you can't grow big legs, but you are limited. So the more range of motion that you're able to build, the better that you're able to move, the better execution that you'll have. And when you have better execution, you'll be able to work the legs better. If you end up kind of doing a powerlifting squat, you can still be working the legs great. You can still be working the hamstrings, the glutes. You can be getting a lot of the legs, but maybe you're not able to focus as much in on building the thickness of the quad, and maybe the weights are kind of sitting in your lower back a little bit more. So I would say really try to learn how to do the movement. And I think one of the first movements that we have to start with is a squat.
Yeah. Is that going to be one of those things where just if you want to get better at it, you just keep kind of hammering down on it? Or is it like you said in the beginning, like, is it something outside of that? So is it like, I don't know, focusing on stretching way more, which of course is going to be part of the answer, but is that just one of those things where, okay, you want to get better at squatting, then just do it every day?
Yeah, I think doing the movement often is a great idea. In my book, Jacked and Tan, I outlined a whole thing about practice. People don't really practice lifting weights. They just kind of lift them, and they try to lift them heavier. But there was never really much regard to practicing it. And in every other sport that you can think of, there's not a sport that you would be able to drum up where there's not some sort of practice involved or a skill. Like, there's like, okay, now we're going to work on skills and drills, right? And they say drillers make killers, right? When you do the drill over and over again and you learn how to do it correctly, then you will become a quote unquote master of it, or you will at some point learn to master it. And maybe you'll never really master or conquer it completely, but you'll at least get close. But I think the activation, being able to activate the correct muscles is huge. And we talk a lot about like recovery, and we talk a lot about all these other things. But if somebody's like, man, my lower back just can't recover from my workouts, from my squats, even if they were squatting 3 times a week, I would point to their technique. And I would say, okay, there's 2 things at play here that I think would be at play. Number 1 is you could be using a little bit too much weight. But number 2 is I'm guaranteeing you that the form is probably off. And every time that you do a squat is different than every time someone like Nsima does a squat, who's able to have excellent form and range of motion. You look at like Ed Cohn. Ed Cohn was able to continually build his squat because he was a master of the squat. Meanwhile, all the rest of us are trying as hard as we can to get stronger, but we're not really executing it the right way. We're too impressed with ourselves, and we're too impressed with piling more weight on the bar. And we continue to do it incorrectly. So I go into the gym and I say, oh, Andrew, man, my back and my knees, everything's kind of stiff and sore. It's because I didn't really work the muscles the way they needed to be worked. I kind of overdid it and lifted improperly.
Real quick, man, let's talk about somebody, because Mike Israetel was talking a lot about full ROM yesterday, right? And he even made like a brand out of it. It's like full ROM. He's got like really cool t-shirts and stuff, and that's dope. But I do this every now and then. Let's talk about somebody who's been doing full ROM for a minute, who we've trained with, who we talk shit about. You guys know who I'm about to mention?
Oh, absolutely.
Who is it? Drum roll, please.
Mike O'Hearn.
Mike O'Hearn. Whenever we train with Mike O'Hearn, what the hell do we see? We see him doing leg presses, bring his knees all the way up to his fucking shoulders. We see him squatting all the way down so his anus touches the dirt. Yep. Like Mike O'Hearn has been doing this for years, and you see the muscularity, you see the development, you see the weight control, you see how he can do full ROM with heavy ass weights. These aren't little weights he's doing full ROM with. He's using like weights that people would use in competition and doing full ROM. I mean, what he's been doing it.
Correlation connection there. Yeah. It was funny. I've thought for the longest time Nsima just never made a sound, like ever while training. And that was the first time I ever heard you like let out a, it was with training with Michael Hurd. Cause he looked at you and he just got all excited. He's like, oh, I can't wait to break this guy down. And that was, he's insane. Like the leg press, you guys were going all the way down to where it would stop. And then you would pause, and then he's like, okay, now go. And you're like, like, oh my God, that looks terrible.
It was tough. But I mean, Mark, you got more to say on this. I know you do.
Yeah, Mike is a master when it comes to this kind of stuff. He knows how to lift the weight properly. And when you watch him do it, you're like, damn, like, okay, he's right. That's how the lift is supposed to be done. And then you try to mimic it and you're like, oh shit, I got to use a lot less weight than him for some reason. But, a good example of this is when Mike does shoulder raises. He does shoulder raises all the way to the point where he brings his arm past, being even with his like ears or eyes, and brings it all the way up overhead to the point where he takes both the dumbbells and kind of pushes them together with his palms facing each other. I've never really seen anybody do a movement like that. And he does that with like 40 pounds. I mean, that's really
heavy.
Yeah, it's insane. Like to do it with 15s or something's cool, but you try to go any higher than like 20, you're like, ooh, that kind of hurts. But some people would look at a movement like that and they would say, oh, the shoulder doesn't work that way. You can't do it like that. And you need to use a lot less weight or whatever the case is, or they'll say you're going to damage your shoulder from doing something like that. But Mike doesn't listen to anybody else other than himself, other than his own kind of like intuition and instincts. And his instincts kind of always lean towards, how do I make this exercise like just really, really tough? How do I make it harder within reason? He's not trying to add a bunch of bands or chains to the weight, or he's not trying to have some just insanely harmful setup going on to where it's going to injure something. But for the most part, he's just trying to look at, how do I optimize this exercise? And most of the time he's done it through full range of motion. And he's not really a huge drop set guy. He doesn't, and also he's not really huge on like failure. Like you'll push to kind of your end degree here and there throughout the workout. But it's not excruciating. He just kind of touches upon it. But I think that he feels like, look, the full range of motion is bad enough. And the fact that we're doing these exercises with this amount of range of motion is bad enough. And Nsima, do you think that, because people talk about the squat being the king, do you think that you have to squat to get big legs?
No, I don't think you have to, but I think that, if you can, it'd be a great idea to learn that movement and build that movement over time. But if you can't squat, there's so many other movements that are great for like the quads and the hamstrings. I think the squat is good for overall glutes, quads, hamstrings, getting everything going at the same time. Yeah. But, as far as like, let me just start like outside the gym right now during COVID. You talked about hills and stuff. I think that if someone were to find a way to maybe, I've mentioned the kettlebell before. I think the kettlebell's great. Maybe get 2 kettlebells, or if you can't afford getting 2 kettlebells, I did see that Origin USA, which is Jocko Willing's company, they have this it's like a leather kettlebell that you could fill with up to 40 pounds. Yeah, it's really cool.
Is it a Bulgarian bag?
No. It's just a leather. It's literally just a leather shaped kettlebell that you can open up, fill with sand. You could fill with lead pellets from like Home Depot. You could fill it up to like 40 something pounds. And it's great. But it allows you, with that, at least outside of this, you could do, if you can't squat for some reason, let's say your knees are wonky, or I don't know, for some reason you just can't do that. Well, if you can't squat, then you wouldn't be able to lunge. I was just saying, like, if someone doesn't like to do in-gym squats, lunges suck for people, but I think lunges are great. There are a bunch of things like Romanian deadlifts, hamstring curls that you can actually makeshift a hamstring curl in your garage if you at least have like a bench or something. But there's a lot of stuff you can do to get big legs, and you don't have to squat. But I just think it's good if you do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the squat is kind of the staple exercise, and then once you have a foundation for that, then you can kind of veer off. And you see a lot of professional bodybuilders, they really won't, a lot of them won't necessarily barbell squat. But there's many reasons on why they won't barbell squat. One reason is kind of the thickening of the waist can happen. A lot of them have a belief that it can kind of thicken up their waistline a little bit too much. There's people that have different theories on that. But one thing I would say is that a squat with a barbell on your back is just really taxing. You can go through a leg press workout, and you can have a good amount of weight on a leg press and end up with a lot of stimulation, but not end up with a ton of annihilation. But if you do a real hard squat workout, you're pretty dead, and it makes it hard to get through the other exercises. So a squat can really pull from you. For me personally, more recently, I've been utilizing a squat as a second or third movement after I leg press or after I belt squat. And the reason is that I want to go into it fairly fatigued. So I just automatically have to use less weight anyway. And that brings us back to the whole full range of motion thing. If you really work on range of motion and you work on trying to go as low as you can within reason and not making sure you're not going to hurt yourself, that will reduce the weight greatly, but it will also increase the stimulus. We're trying to, in this episode, we're mainly talking about kind of building the legs, not necessarily strengthening the legs. And they are a little bit different. They do have a lot of crossover, but in this case of trying to build the legs, when we move weight further, we end up adding volume to our workout. And a lot of times when people are trying to do full range, or even just trying to do squats, period, they end up using too much weight. And because they use too much weight, they don't go low enough, or they don't have the correct form. And once again, they're cutting back on their volume because the distance that they're moving is not as far as it should be per set, per rep.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about both somebody who's already been in the gym for a couple of years and somebody who's listening that maybe might just be starting, and we can attack both of them. But how many times per week should somebody be training legs if they plan on, if the goal is to try to build some size with their lower regions?
I think twice a week is a great place to start. And you could, if you've been training for a while and you've already been doing once or twice a week, you can start to see what it looks like with a little bit more frequency, because frequency, can be a way to increase the overall volume and the overall work that you're doing. But you want to, your legs, they do take a toll on you. And so you might want to kind of keep some of that in mind. Every 5 days isn't a bad way of doing it. I know a lot of bodybuilders have a split where they go 2 days on, 1 day off type of deal. And so something like that might work. And then the legs kind of cycle around each time. What do you think, Nsima?
Well, first off, I think that the general wanting of individuals when it comes to doing a leg day is to do as little as possible, so I feel a little something. Yeah, my quads are feeling a little something. My butts and my hamstring are feeling a little something, but it's not, it really isn't that much, right? So they'll try to do that once a week and they'll move it. I'm not saying that you need to kill yourself or you need to be limping out the gym or you can't walk up your stairs, but you really need to be at a place where you've done some good work on your legs after that training session. Maybe it takes 2 or 3 days to recover. And then, like you said, maybe you hit it every 5 days, but you have to get good workouts in. We have to not skimp on leg day. That's one thing that a lot of people do just because you're right, it hurts, Mark. Like when you're doing a lot of squats or a lot of leg pressing or a lot of movements for your quads and your hamstrings, it hurts. But I think the cool thing about legs is that if you allow yourself to get to a point where you do enough volume and you get used to it, it still hurts, but it's not a pain that you're now scared of. I'll say it's not a pain that you're scared of. Like you're willing to go into the gym to do that because, like with everything you do in the gym, you've adapted to the stimulus, you've adapted to the burn and the pain of your legs. So don't skimp on it and hit it twice a week.
I like what you said there about kind of getting used to that pain. I actually think that when you're training your legs, this is an opportunity for you to expand your mind, for your mind to grow, and for you to teach yourself that you can do it. You can get through that next rep. I'm not saying the entire workout needs to be full blast, gritting your teeth, screaming, or anything of that nature. But I do think that it's important that when you feel that burn in your legs and you feel that urge to stop, that you tell yourself that you're okay. And whether you decide to do another rep or whatever would kind of depend on whatever style protocol you're following. And you want to, I still think it's important to follow the principles of going to a technical limit. I think that's, I think CrossFit, really brought in some different things, and technical limit type stuff has been around for a while. I think language like that has maybe even come from like the military, but CrossFit kind of brought in like the no rep thing. And I really like that a lot because it's like, yeah, dude, like you did a rep, but not really. You didn't do it the way it was supposed to be done. And so keeping that in mind, you can keep a really strong intensity for your workout. And there's a lot of intensity that can be brought to the gym every single time you train. But you want to make sure that you don't go beyond this technical limit. And technical limit would be referring to, let's say you're doing a squat. You go downward in the squat and you break parallel and you decide, you're going to come back up. Technical limit would be if you did a couple of reps and on like rep 7, you're supposed to do a set of 10. Rep 7, butt shoots up first and you're kind of curling over in the low back a little bit. Well, now you have a decision to make. I would say that you could go for one more rep if you really wanted to, but if it's going to kind of look like a train wreck, your knees are going to cave in and that's kind of all you got left, I would discontinue the set and live to do another set because you want to get in good quality work. Not every rep has to kill you. A forgotten element of the gym is that the gym is supposed to make you feel better than the way you felt when you came in. Yeah. The gym is like a nice big cup of coffee with some kratom, a pat on the back and a hug, kind of all wrapped into one. And you should feel like, that you did work hard, but you should feel accomplished, but you should also feel like, wow, that just felt really good. I feel better. I'm in a better mood. So in my opinion, I think that's what the gym should do to you. And in accordance to that, that would mean that you're not killing yourself on every single exercise, every single set, maybe until you get to a point where you can handle that and have it still be fun.
Yeah. After we had Mike Israetel on, my views on like drop sets might have changed a little bit just because, he didn't say that they were in like, you shouldn't do them ever, but obviously he was not a fan of partial range of motion and, even drop sets, but I don't know. I feel because they allow me to still get that full range of motion and to keep adding more reps to the set without getting hurt. I still think I'm going to do them. I still like them. But what are your guys' thoughts on like drop sets and kind of, once you get to that technical limit, dropping the weights, that way you can maintain your form and keep the set going?
Drop sets are great. I think what Dr. Mike was referring to is the fact that in the grand scheme of things, you sometimes could be shooting yourself in the foot because you could have just done a set of 30 on leg press that doesn't allow you to really do a very good set again, and there's some people that believe in like, just, hey, leave it all on the table, do like one good, tough, hard set. And there's a lot of great research that supports that style of training. and there's a lot of great research that shows, one or two, really good sets. But I think there's even more information, talking about doing a little bit more than that. And so the idea of drop sets is so you want to try to make all your reps very challenging. And so how do we do that? So let's just use the leg press, easy example. You got 5 plates on there and you got 2 guys, kind of watching you, and you do a set of 5, and the 5 reps are really difficult. First 2 or 3 are not that bad, but rep 4 and 5 is pretty difficult. Well, now maybe the guys pull, a plate off of a side, and you try to do another 5 reps. Now they pull another plate off the side and you do a total of 15 reps, and all 15 reps were a challenge. As your strength started to decrease, they started to pull a little bit of weight off. You could also, I think Mike's thing on like a drop set is that he's seeing people kind of be sloppy with some of this stuff. And he's like, why don't you just do the exercise the right way, you idiot? And why don't you just, load up an appropriate weight that you could use for 15 reps, not really damage yourself so much, because not every rep needs to kill you. When you do a set of 10, how many reps are really, really brutal? The answer actually should be none of them. That should be the answer, because you should be able to make it through pretty cleanly, unscathed. It can get intense. If it's the last set, the last rep, then it can be intense. I love drop sets. I utilize them a lot. I utilize them very, very often. And one of the reasons why I use them is for that exact reason of trying to keep the intensity of each rep high, because I don't really do that much volume. If somebody trained with me, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? You do a ton of volume. But I really don't. I don't do that many exercises normally. And I don't normally do that many sets. I'm like a 1 to 2 set guy. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bust my ass on this one, see how it goes. If I got a little bit more, I might do 1 more set. But if you really were to look at my workouts, if I actually wrote them down, there would be like 4 exercises in there. They do take me a lot of time because I just enjoy being in the gym and I like taking my time. But that's some of my take on it. What do you think, Nsima?
Yeah, no, I mean, after talking to him, my idea on drop sets hasn't changed. That's kind of how I've approached it for years, because I'm someone who does like to do a lot of training volume, and I've trained with a lot of training volume for years. But the thing is drop sets lead you to high levels of fatigue within a set. So just an example here. Let's say that you are leg pressing. Let's say you're leg pressing with 4 plates, right? And each set, your goal is to maybe do 5 sets of 10, right? And the 10th rep on each set is kind of difficult. But let's say that on your second set, you do a drop set. So you do, a set of 10, then you drop a plate, then you manage maybe 8 reps, drop a plate, 6 reps, drop a plate, etc. Right? If you were to try to do another set with 5 plates, your legs would be so jello because of the fatigue that you brought upon in that drop set that you probably wouldn't be able to do you wouldn't be able to do 5 sets, and you might not even be able to do close to that. And when we think about the idea of volume, right? That 4 plates at 10 reps, if you calculate the total training volume, you're getting in more training volume doing 4 sets of 10 than doing a set, then a drop set, and then attempting to do the remaining sets, but you won't be able to because your legs are jello, right? So I like drop sets, but I do drop sets at the end of sets towards the end of my workout. And the reason why I do it not just at the beginning of my workout, but the end of sets towards the end of my workout is because if I did a drop set with a leg press or whatever at the beginning of my workout, all my other lifts now suffer. Like the lunges that I want to do suffer. The Bulgarian split squats that I want to do suffer because now my legs are shaking while I'm on the bench. Everything suffers because of the one drop set I did at the beginning of my workout. But if I choose to do a drop set with a movement at the end of my workout, it's now a burnout. I can still get the benefit and the feeling of the drop set without having my workout suffer because of it. So that's how I've used it, because I love them, but I just can't use them at the beginning.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
You can make yourself extremely weak. You can kind of really weaken yourself from doing a drop set. So it's something you should keep in mind. I love the fact that you said you don't start out with it. Now that also doesn't mean that you can't start out with it. It just means that it's probably not the best idea to start out with it all the time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's such a key thing right there. It's like, just because you don't start out with it on one workout doesn't mean that on another workout you can't use it at the beginning. I think the big concept here is trying to progress your training week to week. And you need to see, like, okay, the workout that I did drop sets in the beginning, let's look at that one workout and try next week to do more with that workout. Right. And another workout, if you don't do drop sets at the beginning, look at that workout as its own thing and try to do more in terms of that workout next week. You can still progress that way. There's no reason why you can't.
So if we were just to have like a whiteboard and we were to add up a bunch of numbers, and let's say Nsima and I were working out together, let's just say we're both, we can both squat 500 pounds. We start the workout off with leg extensions, right? And let's say we do 4 sets of 25. We do 100 reps of leg extensions, right? We're trying to get like a pump. We're trying to like body build. We're like, hey, this is the way you build big legs, right? Well, we may have reduced, we have reduced the overall output of what we're going to be able to do when it comes to the squat. Now, I don't know what the science says. I don't know what the research says when you're pre-exhausted and you have some pre-fatigue. I personally think that some pre-fatigue is great and it can be utilized often, and it can help because in the case of bodybuilding, in the case of trying to get hypertrophy, we're trying to get a pump and to continue that pump. However, it's not just about that workout. As Nsima just pointed out, you want to be able to have continued progress over time. So if we train like this week in and week out, where we always do these leg extensions for 100 reps before we do our squats, it's going to be very difficult. You know, we're going to be squatting 275 or something. Our legs are going to be shaking. We're going to be dying. We're going to be laughing at ourselves. We're going to be like, what the fuck? You know, and the next week probably won't be able to really progress because we're really zapping our energy. We're destroying our muscular system. Our central nervous system is trying to fire because we're trying to lift more weight. And now the two things are kind of colliding, and we're just ending up with kind of a disastrous workout. Again, I'm not saying that you can't work out that way. I'm just saying that I think that those workouts are a little short-sighted sometimes, and you want to think of the overall picture. Strength does not always have to be at the forefront for you to get bigger, but it is a good idea to revisit, okay, I'm going to work on getting stronger. Like that should happen a couple times a year where you're like, you know what? I think my squat's down a little bit. That sucks. It didn't feel very good. Like, I think I'm going to bring it back up again. And then you work on it, or your deadlift or whatever it might be. So I think it's a great point. And Nsima is like, you need to try to make sure that you're going to be able to make progress. And then on top of that, one way to make sure that you're making progress is to write shit down. And rather than starting out with the 4 sets of 25 of the leg extension, maybe if you wanted to get like a little pre-fatigue going, maybe do 3 sets of 10 of it just to get a warm up. Knees are warmed up, quads are warmed up. They have a little bit more of a pump. Maybe it pulls a tiny bit off the top set, but now we're still able to have a great workout with 4 or 5 and go back and forth and do sets of that.
You know, the really big thing that I hope people take away from what we did with our podcast with Mike, and then what we're talking about with here, is like we mentioned Mike O'Hearn too. If you want to start really doing these movements at their full range, I think Mike Israetel mentioned something that was really key, is that everybody has a individual range of motion. Which you can build over time. So if you're not able to squat that low, squat to where you can comfortably without pain, and then just slowly over time inch it down from there. And I like how he said he used 6, 8 to 12 months until you potentially get full range of motion. Think about that. He didn't say after about a month of squatting you're going to be able to get to full range of motion with that movement. He said after 6, 8, or 12 months. That is a lot of patience. That is a lot of consistency. That is a lot of frustration. That is a kick to the balls. Like, that's tough. But to be able to like Mike O'Hearn doing lateral raises, freaking starting here, going all the way up here with 40 pounds. that like, I can't do 40. I could probably do 15 or 20. Like, that takes a long time to build, doing those types of movements, moving the muscle throughout its full range. Just give it time, though. Be okay with being the guy in the gym that isn't doing presses or whatever with the 100 and something pounds. Be okay with dropping yourself back to 50 or 75 or 60 or whatever, so that you can build from there, but build with quality.
Yeah, Mark, you had said something about kind of looking at the big picture. So with that in mind, the focus is on trying to build size, build legs. Can somebody do like supersets and still have enough focus on trying to build legs, as opposed to like, nope, you know what, I'm going to build. So right now I'm going to leg press, as opposed to like, maybe I'm going to do leg extensions and like hamstring curls, because it's probably about time I get out of this gym.
Yeah, doing antagonistic work is amazing. So, pairing up a hamstring dominant movement with a quad dominant movement is amazing. They sometimes will run into each other pretty hard, though, where you'll get to a point where sometimes the lower back is involved. So if you were to try to do like stiff leg deadlifts in between your squats, I don't think that would be a good idea, because your lower back will be blown up. But some sort of leg curl, I think, is reasonable in between most of your quad exercises. And then also, if it's an isolation movement for the quads, if it's something like a leg extension, or maybe even a hack squat, where the focus is really just kind of laser focused in on the quads, and it's an isolation movement, taking the lower back out of it. Well, then now you could probably have the freedom to do a hamstring exercise like a stiff leg deadlift. Just be careful, that you're not doing like step ups or lunges in between your squats, because it could be reducing the strength that you have for those movements. Again, it doesn't mean that you can't do that. It just means that you should have the awareness and understanding that if you're doing a Bulgarian split squat in between your regular squats, it's going to really kind of zap your energy that you have, going into each set. Supersets are great, and working the opposing muscle can really shorten your workout up, I would say, by 20 minutes, 30 minutes sometimes. You can go, I've been doing that for a long time, where I'll do like a belt squat, and in between that, you're just standing around, encouraging the other people you're lifting with and stuff. And so why not take a few seconds and go, hit your leg curls up.
Yeah, no, that's like what Mark said there is amazing. I like doing that with everything. Superset your bicep with your tricep movement, superset your chest with your back movement on that workout. Saves you a lot of time, allows you to keep things moving, because I don't like necessarily standing still. I don't like waiting that minute before my next set. It's super useful, and you can still get the most out of your workout. I think it does hit harder on legs, though. Like if you were to do a leg press and hamstring curl, even though they're antagonistic, you'll still feel that.
Oh, yeah.
You'll still feel that. But it still can work.
I think if you were to try to think about what we're talking about here in very basic terms, you will decrease your strength. Excuse me. You will decrease your strength as the workout continues to go on. Like, that's just a fact. Like, you're going to fatigue. You're going to get tired. But what if you trained systematically, and what if you trained with a plan or an idea in mind of what the exercises are going to look like for that particular day? You either have hired a coach or you have written out what you're going to do. I think it's a great idea to try to work your way backwards. Think about your workout backwards and start to think about, okay, I'm finishing my workout with lunges. I'm finishing my workout with some lunges. So what's that going to look like at the end? Do I want to not be able to do any lunges, or do I want to be able to, just do some lunges, just to kind of open up the hips and just to kind of have a cool down? Or am I going to do lunges with 40 pounds in each hand, or with chains over my neck or something like that? I think if you can work your way from the back part to the front, I think you'd be better off, because I think that you can start to align that with how you want to finish your workout and how you want to end up leaving the gym for the day. So reason why I'm bringing this up is, if you were to do like leg press and you were to superset it with the belt squat, this is something I've done many times. I really like it a lot. Go back and forth between the two. Well, I've messed that up a bunch of times to the point where I really clobbered myself. And as the workout progressed, you know, I'm doing like leg curls and I'm doing, you know, box squats. And by the time I get to my lunges, I can barely lunge. My whole body is shaking and trembling. So the question here is, am I better off, you know, being able to hold 40 pounds in each hand at the end of the workout and lunge than I would be if I can barely do a lunge? And I think there's not really a right or wrong answer there, because in the first example where I can barely do a lunge, I already crushed myself. I already got what I needed from the workout for that particular day. But also, I think that in most people's development, it is really critical and crucial that they build strength. And the only way you're going to build strength takes a long time. It's not cultivated overnight. It takes years. It sometimes takes decades. And so in the grand scheme of things, I like option 2, where you're holding those 40-pound dumbbells. And for most of you guys that are listening that are kind of skinny or smaller, I think it's even more important that you train that way, because you're not even going to be able to use nearly as much weight on those beginning supersets. And so you need to figure out a way to pick up, where can you gain ground? You know, where can you bring a good amount of volume into your workout? And a lot of times it's going to be on the accessory stuff that's more towards the end of the workout.
Yeah. Is there any, this is kind of a silly question, but is there any magic in anything, in all the people that you guys have both helped, you know, develop stronger legs, better looking legs, you know, physique wise? Is it a one size fits all, or is there something where like, oh, this person got huge on a belt squat, this person just regular was, you know, regular barbell squat, this guy over here was a leg press? Or is there kind of almost like a one size fits all, which is essentially hard work, but you know what I mean? You know, it's like, oh, is keto the answer? It's like, well, no, you know, maybe not, but you know, it can be. So have you guys seen anything where it's like, holy shit, like that worked for this guy, that definitely worked for this guy, that sort of thing, where it's like now it's like a staple when you guys are giving advice on how to build bigger legs?
I think the staple that I would say, and it kind of falls in line with the question that I think Mark mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast. It's like, do you think you can build big legs without squatting? I think the one thing that doesn't change is like, you need to work with what you've got. You need to work with what you're able to do. I've worked with people who have issues where they just can't squat, right? So we look at what can you do to get some stimulus in your quads and your hamstrings and your glutes in the gym, and let's just go to fucking town with those movements, and you can build good legs. You could build great legs. So I think that's the thing. It's like, just because you can't squat doesn't mean you shouldn't do leg day, right? And I think even some machines that you don't want to sleep on just because you only see like chicks on Instagram use them, like the Smith machine. The Smith machine, you do full range of motion squats on the Smith machine with your legs kind of close together, and then see to tell me that you're not feeling something great there. But a lot of guys avoid the Smith because it's like, oh, it's too much assistance. It's, straight up and down. It's great for size, I'll tell you that, right? So I think the big thing is just using the movements you have at your disposal and really just focusing on progressing with them.
Absolutely. I think, the only thing that's constant amongst everybody is this idea of progression. Somebody that has progressed over a period of time to squat, 405 efficiently, effectively, ass to the floor. There are occasions where that person doesn't have that well of leg development because of maybe some of the other ways that they're training. But for the most part, that person usually has pretty good legs. So just figuring out a way to make some progress. Most of the people that have great legs that you see in the gym, they're able to do heavy weight on some sort of leg movements. Maybe they're not the greatest squatter in the world, but they can leg press, they can hack squat. I would say out of all my years of being around, I've seen all these different things work. all the way from, belt squat, which is like a newer piece, to a hack squat, leg presses, regular squats, lunges. They all seem to be great. I think bodybuilders tend to use the lunge quite a bit, especially like a weighted lunge. I know Ronnie Coleman was like a big fan because it helps build up kind of the inner thigh, helps build up the adductors, helps build up the hamstrings, helps build up the glutes. And it's kind of just working the quad, and hamstring, just working your whole leg really efficiently and effectively. But I don't think there's like one exercise that you have to do or focus on. I think hitting the muscles from some different angles is critical. I would also say that one thing I have noticed that has been a common theme is that powerlifters sometimes have great legs and sometimes they don't, because central nervous system training doesn't always equate to larger legs, doesn't always equate to a stimulus and growth, because some of these people can move the weight so fast. You look at the way, Stan used to lower the weight pretty slowly to try to be in the best position possible. So you figure he'd get some eccentric benefit for that by building up the legs. But he would do the reps so quickly, and he would only do one rep, that he wasn't really getting a lot of hypertrophy. And so Stan has amazing legs. His legs look fucking crazy, but he doesn't have really big or thick legs. And we've seen that from a lot of powerlifters. Jeremy Avila squatted 800 pounds. And his legs, don't tell that full story. I mean, it's not like his legs look like shit. They look pretty good. They're just not they're not real beefy. But if we had Jeremy working on hack squat and working on belt squat and working on some leg press and some leg curls, we know that his legs would just blow up overnight, because he's got great genetics and he already has a good strength base. So really the only commonality is just, the putting in the work, getting the work done, and doing so with good intensity. And then also, having some leaning towards trying to get some sort of progression of being able to move more weight.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like you you brought up the Smith machine, and that just made me really want to ask you guys, and this is going to be hard, especially after what you said, just do what you can. But are there any, I guess we can do 3 do's and don'ts. So 3 movements that you really should be focusing on, and then 3 that you maybe saw on Instagram that you should probably ignore. I can't remember who it was. I think it was a high-level bodybuilder. It might have been Ben Pekulski. Was talking about almost like that inverted leg press. I think, Mark, you were on his podcast when he was talking about it. I don't remember if that was on air or not, but I just remember looking at that, not really understanding what it was. But then when he talked about it, I'm like, oh shit, maybe it is something that I, maybe should look into or whatever. So if you guys
it was really good,
oh, I think you unplugged.
Oh, was he saying it was really good?
I think I don't remember. I'm having a hard time remembering because I don't even remember if it was on the podcast or not. But are there? Yeah, we can start with don'ts. 3 things that maybe, like I said, somebody saw influencer doing on Instagram that we should probably ignore. Whether it be I don't know, banded hip thrust, whatever it may be. Is there something in the gym that you guys found that is just not really effective for building legs?
First thing that kind of comes to mind of a don't, and this is just a general don't, not necessarily isolated to just legs, is don't be in a rush. Just fucking take your time. You haven't squatted before, or you haven't squatted that often. You're not used to it, and you go in the gym and you go to move around 5 plates and your knees shoot forward a lot as you go to descend. You can't get your hips down at all. Just tell yourself, look, I'm a white belt, don't beat yourself up over it, but just say I'm in fucking kindergarten, and I don't have any problem, playing with the crayons. I'm not ready for the pencils and shit like that. So I'm just going to throw some 10s on the side instead of that 45. And I'm going to be patient with it. I'm going to make sure I do the lift the right way. I've been preaching that forever. And as much as I say it, I still think that people don't hear it enough. Like, just learn to do the lift the right way. When you learn how to do it the right way, then you can start to have your own creations and have some of your own variations. But whatever it is that you're going to do in the gym, I always think that you should have to provide some good evidence on why you're doing it. It could be simple. It could be, I could say, dude, what are you doing with that giant set over there, doing 5 different exercises in a row? Are you crazy? And you could say, yeah, I'm trying to build some mental fortitude. I'd go, check. All right, good. Sounds great. You're trying to, that potentially what you could be doing could be kind of working against your body in some ways. But if you're doing it for your mindset, then you're probably onto something. I know that O'Hearn is a big believer in that. So my main thing would just be, if there's a don't, just, really try to stick to that. Stick to that discipline of not going too fast, because I think it's the worst thing that I see in fitness is people, they're trying to lose weight for this time period, or I'm going to get in shape for this. And then it's always like, yeah, but then what are you going to do? Why are you getting in shape for that? Why not be in shape for life? Why not try to find a plan that fits into your lifestyle really well? And with all this stuff that we're talking about here, we have to understand that a lot of people can't afford to spend 2 or 3 hours in the gym. And so they need to get the most out of each workout. And because of that, and because you don't have time to just sit around and eat protein all day and take a nap, Michael Hearn comes home from his workout. He has about 100 grams of protein in a shake. I think he usually eats like an hour later, and then he takes a nap. People don't have time to do that kind of stuff, but Mike does, and it's a living for him. It's what he does. So you got to kind of just keep all that in mind. Don't try to go too fast. Just take your time.
I think in line with that, don't try to go for too fast, is don't avoid smaller movements. I think a lot of people avoid movements like the lunge or the Bulgarian split squat or or even like the dumbbell RDL, because you can't load it up like you can a leg press. You can't load it up like you can a squat. You can't load it up like you can a barbell, a lot of barbell movements. And people think, oh, these movements are useless because I can only lunge with 30 pounds each hand comfortably. I can't lunge with 60 pounds. So why would I even do this? It's not useful. Don't avoid those movements. Get better with those movements with that weight, and then increase, because that'll actually make a big difference for your overall leg stability, which then is actually going to have good carryover back into your squat, because now you actually have those smaller muscles in your legs are stronger. So you're going to be stronger in those other movements. So I see a lot of people avoid these accessory movements, these small movements, because you don't load them up, and that you're shooting yourself in the foot when you do that. You're losing out on a lot of development.
So far, some of the stuff that we talked about here is we went over form. We talked about strength. So you want to be able to learn how to do the movement the right way. Once you have learned how to do the movement the correct way, that's when you're going to start to add reps, or add sets, or add weight. Most likely it would probably be weight. Once you got the form and technique down, once you feel like you know how to do the movement the right way, there's so much information on YouTube of form and technique. And then you can also record yourself and kind of make sure that things are looking okay. Check with a buddy, check with a training partner, check with somebody at your gym. If the gym is shut down, try to send some videos to a coach or somebody that will take a peek at it and say, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then you can start to, once you got the form down, you start to work on the strength. And another big part of this whole thing is going to be your volume. Another big part of this will be your frequency. So like once we have our form down, and once we're able to work on strengthening the body a little bit, then we can start to look into, adding more volume or adding more days. But it's not a great idea to add, more days. Like, it's not a good idea to get all fired up and be like, yeah, I'm going to train legs 3 times a week when you don't even really have the form yet. You don't have the technique, unless you were going to really use light weights every time you trained. I don't think that would be in your best interest, because I think you'd be kind of wearing yourself out. But for the newer lifters, I think it's really important and crucial, to Nsima's point, is when you don't know how to squat 405, let's say your best squat is like 300, and let's say that for the workout you did you did, I don't know, 3 sets of 6 with 250, 265. Well, that just kind of represents a certain amount of work. And then let's say you did a couple other movements, and we're to add up all the weight that you did at the end of the workout. Well, the weight that you did at the end of the workout is going to be so much significantly less than that person that was able to squat 405 for a few reps and for a couple sets. So where can you make up any ground? How do you don't want to even try necessarily to compete with those people, because they are just ahead of you. And we talked earlier about trying to, or basically avoiding going too fast. But you can make up some ground in your assistance training, and you can make up some ground in implementing frequency. Once you do get the form and technique down and stuff like that. So your assistance exercises become really, really critical. And I think a lot of people tend to blow those off. If you're a newer lifter, that's kind of your only option, because you're just not quite strong enough to get the volume necessary to create the stimulus needed for you to get bigger and stronger simultaneously as fast as that training partner that's already squatting like 4 plates. And so, make sure you're getting that assistance work in, make sure you're really trying to master that, and make sure you're really trying to get that, because a lot of the bigger guys, a lot of the guys that are in better shape, that's the one area that they're going to be sleeping on a little bit, because they're going to be fatigued from their 405 squats.
Man, that's so powerful. I think that's huge. One of the biggest things that people can take away from this podcast, because I just know, if you and I are working out on something, obviously you're going to kill me and everything. But I know that, like, okay, hey, towards the end, especially like when you were doing burpees and stuff, like, okay, I know I can keep up with him on that. Like that's how I looked at it. But the way you put it is like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to squat 405, but maybe I can smoke them on lunges or something, or maybe I can make up some ground.
Yeah. Could you do an extra set?
Exactly.
I could say, yeah, I'm good. And you could say, I'm not, I'm gonna do another set. I could go, what?
Yeah. And that's an amazing feeling, so that helped me out a ton. Cause
look at our boy, Gavin, when we train with him, he's a fucking lunatic,
dude. Yeah.
Gavin Murphy that we had on the podcast, and he trains with O'Hearn. He's like, I don't care that I weigh 170 or whatever. He's like, I'm going to battle with the big boys. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna give it my best go, and he'll pull weights off, but he'll do extra sets.
Yeah, and while training with O'Hearn, he gave him shit too. Like he always made fun of him or whatever. He just kept coming back. That's just the kind of guy he was or is. Shout out to Gavin Murphy. So I guess my last question that would kind of wrap everything up is, we talked about training, we talked about volume, we talked about everything inside the gym. Outside of the gym, not even thinking about recovery, but like nutrition. Where should somebody's nutrition be, as far as, should they be at maintenance? Should they just say, hey, I'm going to start building, so I'm going to be in a surplus? Or should they even pay attention? Like, what should somebody be focusing on as far as their nutrition when trying to build legs?
For me personally, I like food choices. I think that's where everything starts is, when you have good food choices, I think the quantities start to take care of themselves. And so try to eat lean meats, Piedmontese beef. We talk about it incessantly over here. Piedmontese beef is great. It's a really lean, tender meat, and goes down nice and smooth. Most of the time when meat is lean, it's really dry. You can also mess around with the chicken and turkey and egg whites and stuff, but that stuff is absolutely disgusting compared to Piedmontese beef. So, try to get in good amount of protein. I would say like 1 gram per pound at the minimum, and 1.25, maybe on the high end of grams of protein per pound of body weight. You could do a similar thing with carbohydrates, and then I would just let your fats kind of fall where they may. But again, it's in accordance to like the stuff that you're eating. If you're eating lean meats, you could still have some butter here and there. You could still have a little bit of olive oil here and there, but don't go way out of your way to eat a lot of fat. You can have an avocado every day. I think the fats, they'll take care of themselves. Make sure you feel good in your workouts. don't worry so much about the exact foods that you're eating and the amounts that you're eating, and don't get so caught up in that. Have a nice grocery list of food that makes sense, whole foods, lean meat, veggies, fruit, potatoes, rice, stuff like that. You should be good to go on that. I would say, always lean towards protein first. Have protein be the priority. I would even say, like, eat your protein first. There's more and more research kind of showing what that does and how it helps you to digest carbohydrates better. So just kind of lean towards that stuff, and maybe eat 3 to 4 times a day, maybe even 5 if you need to, if you're hungry. But when we're trying to gain weight, we sometimes do need to force the issue a little bit, and so starting to combine carbohydrates with your protein would be a good idea. So getting like, a monster mash type thing, like a Stan Efferding type deal going, where you're taking your ground beef and rice and kind of mixing them together, or taking steak and chopping it up and eating it with rice or potatoes or something like that. Just real basic stuff. Making sure you're hitting that protein amount every day, and making sure you have enough carbs to where your workouts feel good and you feel powerful and you feel strong. Can't forget about salt, the importance of salt, and the importance of even some sugar here and there. Like just a little jolt of sugar or a little jolt of carbohydrate before a workout could really keep your blood levels nice and stable. I was working out yesterday with our buddy Mike, who we had on the show, Mike Frank, former police officer, and he just like bonked. Like he was just toast. And I didn't have any element in my backpack, but I did have a thing of honey, because I keep honey in my backpack for such occasions. And I have this like little individual thing of honey, and it's like 4 grams of sugar. Like it's nothing, I gave it to him. He went from being pasty white to looking okay, and he was able to finish the workout. But salt and sometimes just a little bit of carbohydrate can go a long way. So don't be scared of carbs and think that they're going to like make you fat and all that kind of stuff. But a little bit of carbs can go a long way and can help kind of push your workouts forward.
No, I honestly found that so fucking funny. Like, I just picture you like being like 70 or something, and like you have your backpack with you working out at the gym. You see some kid bonking, like, "Hey kid, here's some honey. Just take this honey."
Well, it's funny because everybody's like, "What's that?" Because like, I don't know, the packet it's in like kind of looks kind of weird, and the way you fold it and the way you like take it. Like one of the older bodybuilder guys over there came over, and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Shh!" I was like, "It's Diana Ball." His eyes lit up. He's like, "Really?" He's like, "That's awesome." I was like, no, it's actually just honey. He goes, "No, what is it really?" And I was like, "It's honey." I was like, "It's,
Is that a new
honey?" I don't know.
Street name for a new steroid?
Yeah.
Oh god, that's great.
Cool. That's all I had as far as questions. If you guys have anything to add, you guys can just cut me off. But I love these episodes because they're so beneficial. I learn something from them every time, because I just get to sit here and ask you guys a bunch of questions that I don't know why. Like, I wouldn't just ask you in passing, but because we're recording, I can be like, "Oh, what would people do?" And it's really like, "Hey guys, what should I do?" So I really appreciate everything. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, kind of forcing stuff a little bit is a good idea. Like I in general, in life in general, I'm not a huge fan of like really, forcing yourself to do shit that you don't want to do. But I do think in the gym, I think it's a good idea to say, okay, I'm going to practice squatting for the next few weeks or even the next few months. And I'm just going to do 3 sets of 10. When I'm able to do 3 sets of 10 with a plate on each side, and I don't feel like I'm going to die, I have 90 seconds to 2 minutes rest in between sets. Once I'm able to complete that, I'm going to add 5s to the side, or whatever amount of weight it is that you want to add to the side. And you're going to have a progression, and you're maybe going to try to work your way into, I don't know, squatting 185 pounds for 3 sets of 10 with good control, showing that you have control over the weight, demonstrating to yourself that you know how to do the lift the right way. But like writing it down and really trying to maybe even write down a goal. Like, what's the goal? What are you trying to do? You're trying to make your legs bigger? Well, have you ever measured your legs? Like, let's get a measurement going. Like, let's figure out, like, what does this look like? Maybe you measure one leg, and then maybe you measure around both legs. Maybe you want your ass to be bigger, and you measure around your butt, and you want to get some glute bridges and stuff like that in there too. But like, have a goal. Have an idea of what some of this is going to look like, because if you just go in and you squat here or there, you squat every other week or whatever, the progress is going to be, you could still make progress, but the progress will be way slower, and it's not going to be, you don't have a target. And without a target, you don't know what to aim at. And without knowing what to aim at, you're floating around aimlessly. You don't know what you're doing. So get yourself a target. Figure out, you can even just look at different people on Instagram and say, I want my legs to look like that guy's. And then you can kind of figure out, hey, well, what does that guy do? What does that guy? And then you can start to get excited about, like, okay, well, this guy, he loves doing weighted lunges. And you follow Corey Gregory or something. You do the mile lunge or whatever it is. Find somebody that you admire, find somebody that you like. And within reason, try to maybe mimic some of what they're doing. It's not always a good idea if it's like a pro bodybuilder or something, because they've been at it for so long, you might just crush yourself. But you get what I'm saying over here, I think.
And one thing I did want to mention too, because I was looking at our comments from the Mike Israel video, and some people were like, oh, now they want to talk about eating carbs, or now they're for eating carbs. No one here has ever been against eating carbs. I'm still like in the party of just be careful about how many you eat, how much you eat. Because, we were mentioning, add some carbs into your diet, but that doesn't mean that you need to be eating 500 per day and say that that's an excuse for you to get, like, I need 500 grams of carbs a day to get bigger. You probably don't, trust me. Like, you do not need that many. And it doesn't also give you an excuse to eat trash carbohydrates because you're bulking or trying to grow. Right. So that's all we're saying here. It's just like, add them in, but understand that you don't need an insane amount for growth. You don't need 400 or 500 grams of carbohydrates so you can gain muscle.
But Jay Cutler ate 1,000. So
that's right. I'd also say it's okay for us to change our answer too. It's okay for us to change over time. I mean, I personally would never be a huge fan of consuming a lot of carbohydrates for myself, but that doesn't mean I have to, push that belief out to everybody else. If I promote low carb lifestyle, it's only because I'm excited about it, and it's because it's something that's worked for me. Being a former fat guy, you got to keep in mind, like, I lost 100 pounds. I watch videos sometimes of some of the other guys that are still powerlifting, and they're still pushing big weights around pretty good, but they're not really what they were. And I kind of halfway admire it, but I'm like, man, they're just really stuck. I think if people were to try to do what I did, I think this is way fucking harder. And I am kind of tooting my own horn, but I lost 100 pounds and never gained it back. Try to think of who else has done, like, who else do you know that's done that? There are people, but there's not like a former power lifter kind of turned into a bodybuilder. Like, the shit that I did was really, really difficult, and a low carb lifestyle helped make it really easy for me, helped make it really simple. And so that's why I'm so pumped up about it, so excited about it. And even today, even nowadays, I don't eat a lot of carbs. I do eat them. But if I had a body cam, which might be a good idea, if I had a body cam and you could see all the food I ate in a day, you're going to see a potato come across the plate once a day. You might see some intra-workout carbohydrates.
A pack of honey.
And a packet of honey. Yeah, that's about what you're going to see. I mean, there's not really much else there. So total grams of carbohydrates, I mean, it would be a different kind of day for me if I ate more than like 200 grams. I think yesterday, after I worked out, I had a bunch of sushi, and so there's probably a good amount of carbs in there. I ate a pretty good amount of sushi. There's probably 150 carbs, but I didn't have my intra-workout carbohydrates, and I didn't eat carbs throughout the rest of the day. So, I think it's one of the toughest things to do in life is to kind of say like, hey, yeah, I want to change my answer. I want to add to that equation. So my views have changed a little bit about carbs. I do recognize their effectiveness, where I think is before I had to kind of tell myself, dude, like carbs aren't for you. I had to like have that dialogue in my head because I was fat before. Not that the carbs made me fat, but that was a dialogue in my head to help me head in the right direction. So that's kind of where I stand on some of that stuff.
Gotcha.
So honey, potatoes. Yeah. Who are you, Paul Saladino?
Yeah, right.
If you take anything away from today, put honey packets in your backpack. Keep those.
One thing I want to add is we didn't mention deadlifting. But there's a lot of powerlifters that have kind of lost weight, or powerlifters that have gotten into bodybuilding. And some of them were like, some people were pretty impressed with like their hamstring development. A lot of that had to do with a lot of the heavy deadlifting and stuff. So for me, a lot of people are like, what have you been doing for your hamstrings over the years? I'm like, I've been box squatting and deadlifting for all these years, which also gave me a giant ass. I don't do anything for my butt. I don't really do much for my calves. They've always just been big, playing football and just doing the different things that I did as a kid, and also probably being heavy probably kind of led to some of that. But don't forget about the deadlift, both sumo and conventional. They build up the legs tremendously. Bodybuilders have been using different types of and different forms of deadlifting for many, many years to build up the glutes, the hammies, the low back, all that stuff.
Your ass on stage was phenomenal. It was hecka funny because when we were all watching the show, like we were just listening to people and they're like, oh my God, his butt. Oh my God, his ass. It's just like everyone was going off on your booty.
Dude, I forget what the hell they told me. I don't know what's going on. I don't know anything about bodybuilding. That was very clear by my show. I just went up there and flexed. I didn't even really know what I was doing when it came to posing. But I went into this room and they were like, oh, you need to get like this gloss on or I need to get my tanning shit off of me. It was like all over my trunks or something weird. So they're like, hey, go into this room. And I was like, okay. And it's all girls in there. And I was like, I can't really go in there. Like, this is weird. They're like, some of them are changing and shit, but they don't care. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem very respectful. Like I shouldn't go in there. And then Hani's like, get in there. He's like, you need to, go do this thing or whatever. And I walk in there and the girls, they go, oh my God. And I was like, I'm like, fuck, they're pissed that I'm in here, and they're like, your ass. They're like, your ass is amazing. Like, what do you do for your ass? I just fucking turned, I'm orange, but I turned beet red. I start sweating and I'm like, like this, like I'm just totally like blushing. I'm like, this is amazing. They're like, we want an ass like yours.
That's amazing. That's so good.
I was like,
my gosh,
get in line, ladies.
Yeah. I'll just add those elevated trap bar deadlifts. Heel elevated trap bar deadlifts. Yeah. The what do we call it?
It's basically like a sissy squat.
Yeah, the death trap. That's what.
Yeah.
Man, I hate those, but they work. They kill your quads.
Yeah, we gotta have Nsima try those sometime.
Yeah,
brutal.
Still haven't done them.
He'll get a world record on them.
I had Josh Settlegate do him one time, and he like never forgot it. He's like, I don't think I'll ever try those again. He's like, that was horrible.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you everybody for checking out today's episode. Hope you guys got a ton of value out of it the way I did. If you did, please share it with a friend. Also, keep a lookout on markbellslingshot.com. Black Friday is coming up.
Woo!
Yeah, I believe you have an opportunity to save up to 30% off on damn near the entire store. On top of that, you're going to have access to a bunch of freebies that we'll be sending out. Some really cool stuff. Make sure you're following at MB Slingshot on Instagram. That's where you'll be able to find a lot of information, as well as there's an email list or a newsletter that you can get on, and you guys gain access to everything, like all the information before anybody else. So please go over there and check that out. Also for markbell.com, we're going to have a super friend chat with Steph and Hayden Bow. Did I say that right? Hayden and Bo. Hayden and Bo, yeah. They'll be on markbell.com. So If you're not a member already, you can just head over to markbell.com and register for a free 7-day trial. Again, this is happening on December 2nd. So just register before then, and you guys will gain access to this conversation. It's going to be an exclusive. You're not going to be able to gain access to it anywhere else. And then lastly, the multi-sport belt, again, at markbellslingshot.com was just dropped. Really just, dude, every day we're doing something awesome over at markbellslingshot.com. So make sure you guys frequent that website. Please make sure you follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. I think I'm going to mess around with Parler, not sure, but it's at MB Power Project on there as well. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z, and shout out to Nsima for his brand new microphone. Really glad I know you made that purchase, dude. I'm happy. That's, by the way, if anybody cares, that's a Samsung Q2U. I recommend it for everybody that's a podcaster or somebody that's doing webinars. It's just the most amazing microphone on the planet. But Nsima, where can people reach you?
Yeah, Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, at Nsima Inyang on Twitter. I think I made a Parler account a long time ago. I just don't use it. And yeah, Mark?
I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. With your workouts, just, always have an intent of the day. So with these leg workouts that you're doing, I think it's a good idea to start your workouts off heavy, and you can have the heaviness of the workout kind of taper off and bring the reps up as you transition into the end of the workout. So the beginning of the workout might start out with anywhere between 4 to 10 reps. The middle of the workout, you might be at 10 to 12 reps. Towards the end of the workout might be where you're getting in 15 to 20. Again, that has to do with your body's already fatiguing. You're getting a little bit tired. You can't use as much weight anyway. So you may as well get the most out of it and try to get the most amount of work in when you're fatigued. By doing higher reps, you'll be getting a greater amount of volume. And just kind of general recommendation is to do 3 or 4 sets of each exercise. I think a good way to do it is kind of the old school way, which is kind of a light, medium, heavy approach. If you're getting into a squat, it's a little bit different because there's a big warm up that has to happen in order for you to even get into your sets. And then you might want your sets to be similar. You might want to do, 4 sets of 6 with 225 or something like that. But for a lot of the other exercises, especially ones that are like on selectorized machines and stuff like that, you can quickly change the pins and make the adjustments. But the kind of light, medium, heavy thing has always worked really well for me. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you all later.